How can slavery still be affecting black people today? Popular rapper goes by the name of Cameron says in one of his songs, "Back in the days we were slaves, whips and chains. It's tradition. All I've got, whips and chains." He's got whips and chains, meaning cars and jewelry. But unfortunately, Cameron's success story is a far cry from many black American males whose experience is more aligned with the whips and chains of old. The whips of a police baton, the chains of mass incarceration. At the root of it all, the same feeling of low self-worth the slaves had. That's how you get such high rates of crime and violence in the black community. There's no value for life. If you don't believe me, ask our success story Cameron, shot 3 times during a botched car robbery back in '05. It's conditioning, ladies and gentlemen. You'll hear that word a lot on this channel. To put it all into perspective, you have to look at American slavery in its totality. Look at the cruelness. The picture used for this channel is of a runaway slave believed to be named Gordon. The horrific scars on this man's back are so painful to look at, one can only imagine how much he suffered for them to get there. It is said the ordeal left him bedridden for months. He was able to eventually escape to the North during the Civil War, and when asked, "Gordon, why were you beaten so viciously?" the reason was so trivial he couldn't even remember. These scars are emblematic of the same suffering and bewilderment black people have been dealing with for generations. So now we have a better idea of the cruelty of slavery. Let's look at the duration. 250 years. That's right, 2.5 centuries. It's about 100 years longer than blacks have been so-called free in this country. And I say so-called because in 1865, when the slaves were liberated, many were so uneducated and desperate, they went right back to the plantation as sharecroppers, which means a slave who gets to keep some of his cotton. And let's not forget to mention the following 100 years, they'd have to contend with the KKK that wanted their property back. Property, of course, meaning black people. And you had to adhere to Jim Crow laws, which famously stated whites and blacks will be separate but equal, which if written honestly would have said whites and blacks will be separate but equal, but really just separate. This is the black American experience, people. Nobody in their right mind will want to trade shoes. Half of the country wants to enslave you. The other half pities you, but doesn't want you living next door. Well, yeah, but Jim Crow ended back in the 1950s. How do you explain black ineptitude now? Well, if you've been listening, you would know. Conditioning. You see, now it's less about what America's doing. It's about what they're not doing, or better yet, what they did. D-I-D. The damage is done. Apparently, when people are treated like slaves and second-class citizens for 350 years, surprise, surprise, they start behaving like slaves and second-class citizens. Email me at thereparationschannel@gmail.com. That's thereparationschannel@gmail.com.